Hi there, YouTube people. I woke up this morning with this article about Boeing Test Pilots. It's truly shocking.
All right, new information coming out about the 737 MAX 8 jets, a story we've been monitoring closely. Boeing's own pilots say they lacked details about the jet's flight control system. RT correspondent Ashley Banks is live in the newsroom with all the latest details. Ashley.
According to people close to the investigation, Boeing limited the role of its own pilots in the final stages of developing the 737 MAX flight control system. Now, the same system being blamed for two fatal crashes, one taking place in Indonesia in October 2018 and the other taking place in March of this year. Boeing senior and test pilots involved in the MAX jet's development didn't receive detailed briefings about how fast or how steep the automated system known as MCAS could push down a plane's nose. These pilots also weren't informed that the system relied on a single sensor rather than two.
I just want to go over this again, and I have a few questions for you commercial jet pilots out there, which I don't fully understand, but this is how I think I understand the system. So you're taking off, and the MCAS system, either by error or correctly, sees that you're taking off at too steep an angle. It triggers the horizontal stabilizer with a big jack screw and turns the motor, which pushes the jack screw to turn the horizontal stabilizer pointing up, so pushing the nose down. So it triggers a 6-degree nose down pitch to recover from a potential stall. You know, it seems like quite an extreme degrees is 6, but anyway, that's how it supposedly worked in the latest update. I think what happened in the Ethiopian crash is that they were taking off either through an error with the angle of attack sensors, or because they were taking off too steeply. You have to remember that Addis Ababa and Ethiopia is not Kansas. Sometimes pilots in other countries of the world need to take off at a reasonably steep angle to clear things like mountains. Anyway, for some reason the MCAS system triggered, probably due to a fault. At low altitude, when it triggered, it pushed the nose down 6 degrees. Pilots pulled back and correctly, following their information after the Lion Air crash, turned off the MCAS system. That also turns off all the power to the jack screw, which moves the horizontal stabilizer. So they are now trying to level the plane with a 6-degree trim, which is possible, but really hard, and the stick control forces so close to the ground must have been extreme. Remember, Boeing still has cables going from the yoke to the elevators and other controls. You know, Boeing pride themselves in having this pilot control. So I think probably what I would have done, and maybe what they did, is that they turned their trim system back on, which gives them a knob on the control column, which turns the motor back on to be able to trim the horizontal stabilizer to a more neutral position. The choice was, if they didn't turn it on, was to turn the trim wheels, which are in the cockpit, which they must have seen flying backwards when it actuated. My question is, how many manual turns for a 6-degree nose down would they have had to manually have turned it back to a more neutral position? I believe maybe, I don't know, but imagine it was 50 turns. That's just going to take too long, and it's a lot of work. So let's turn it back on. Let's get the electric motor back on to be able to trim the horizontal stabilizer back to a more neutral position. As soon as they turned it back on, the MCAS system still erroneously, or for some reason, thought they were climbing too steeply and added a second trim down. You've now got 12 degrees of bank very close to the ground. God, already the stick forces for the first 6 degrees were pretty high. Now by the second actuation, please tell me where I'm going wrong here, because I need to understand this, but I think by the second actuation the stick forces and possibly the elevator control just couldn't overcome the nose down tendency that the aircraft had now been placed in, so close to the ground, and they crashed. Am I correct? Am I getting anywhere close? I'm sure I've used some terminology which isn't quite right, and correct me politely, please. But basically, is that the case? And just to go back to my opening statement, Boeing Test Pilots really should have tried this system out. Boeing loves their test pilots. They're part of the whole development of a new aircraft. What a test pilot does is checks not only is the aircraft, flyable, but can it be flown by the average, highly skilled but normal aircraft commercial pilot. And if they weren't part of the MCAS system, if they didn't know that when the MCAS activated, it wasn't 2 degrees as it was certified with the FAA, but 6 degrees, it might have produced an aircraft that was just too difficult to fly, or, my opinion, is too difficult to recover if it went wrong. To close, I'm just going to play an interview with the CEO of Boeing. The truth is out there.
Now, Boeing Chairman and CEO Dennis Muilenburg recently spoke at a news conference and was asked why should consumers trust Boeing. Here's his response.
First of all, again, our commitment to safety is unwavering, and we do regret the impact that this has had to passengers. We know we do have work to do to earn and re-earn that trust, and we will. I will say to the first part of your question, as we've been part of both investigations, we've been very diligent about respecting the integrity of the investigation process throughout and providing technical support. We know that in both accidents there was a chain of events that occurred. One of the links in that chain was the activation of the MCAS system because of erroneous angle of attack data. That was a common link in both accidents.
He adds the company is focused on improving safety moving forward to prevent any more fatalities. At this time, both the Indonesian and Ethiopian crashes are still under investigation. Meanwhile, a U.S. Health Subcommittee has scheduled a May 15th hearing on the Boeing 737 MAX airliner. Reporting in the newsroom, Ashley Banks, RT.